The rain-streaked windows of their Seattle apartment blurred the city lights into a smear of cold gold, framing a seemingly perfect Sunday evening that was about to quietly shatter. The velvet ring box in Ryan's hand felt heavy with 3 years of shared history, but it was the muted buzz of a hidden phone and the chilling indifference in Ava's whisper that truly stopped his heart. There is a specific kind of heartbreak in realizing the person you love is hiding behind a veil of deceit. If you are drawn to stories of quiet betrayals, the heavy cost of truth, and the dangerous edge of self-respect,
I understand.
stay with me, and let's watch this unravel together. The Seattle rain drummed a relentless, hypnotic rhythm against the floor-to-ceiling windows of their apartment. Inside, the air was warm, smelling faintly of the Thai basil chicken they had just finished, and the lavender candle burning on the coffee table. The television was paused on a frame of a baking show, casting a static, artificial glow over the living room. To the rest of the world, it was an ordinary Sunday evening. To Ryan, it was the precipice of the rest of his life. He sat on the edge of the gray sectional, his thumb nervously tracing the plush velvet of the small box hidden deep in his pocket. For 6 months, they had talked about this. Casual remarks about ring settings while walking past jewelry stores, half-joking debates about whether a spring or fall wedding was better. He hadn't pulled this out of nowhere. He was simply answering the question she had been quietly asking for a year. Ava sat at the kitchen island, her back slightly turned to him. She was scrolling through her phone, her thumb moving with a frantic, disjointed energy. Every time the screen illuminated her face, her jaw seemed to tighten.
Oh, yeah?
Ava,
Tell me.
Ryan said, his voice cutting through the ambient hum of the refrigerator.
Did he slip?
She didn't look up. Her eyes remained glued to the screen. Yeah? She murmured, her tone distracted, a little sharp around the edges. Ryan stood up. His chest felt tight, a nervous thrill pooling in his stomach as he crossed the hardwood floor. He stopped just a few feet from her stool. He didn't need a crowd. He didn't need a grand, cinematic backdrop. He just needed her attention. As he sank down onto one knee, the fabric of his jeans pulling tight against his skin, Ava finally locked her phone. But she didn't just lock
This
it.
can't be real.
She slammed it face down onto the marble counter. A harsh clack that made Ryan flinch internally. He pulled the velvet box from his pocket and popped it open.
It's the only way.
The modest, elegant diamond caught the pendant light overhead. Ava,
You've gotta be kidding
Ryan
me.
started, his voice
Again.
steady despite the hammering in his chest. I love you. You're my home.
Why does this always
I
happen?
want to spend the rest of my life. She didn't
I
gasp.
have to do this.
She didn't cover her mouth in shock.
There's no turning
Instead,
back now.
her features contorted into a mask of
He's right,
pure,
we're out of
unadulterated exhaustion.
You shouldn't
She
be
leaned
here.
forward, resting her elbows on the counter, and looked down at him, not with love, but with the weary annoyance
both
of
know
someone
why
who
I
had just
am.
been handed a parking ticket.
You
She
need
leaned
to
in closer,
understand.
the scent of her expensive vanilla perfume suddenly suffocating.
This is
Ryan,
the only
stop,
way.
she whispered, her voice a
I
sharp,
don't know what to
hissing
do
breath.
anymore.
I'm not ready. If you can't wait, marry someone else.
I'm here for you,
The words
Ryan.
didn't explode. They seeped into the quiet room like a slow-acting poison. Ryan stayed on his knee for a second too long, waiting for the punchline, waiting for the nervous laugh. But Ava just stared at
God, I
him,
can't believe
her eyes
this.
hard, entirely detached from the 3 years of shared history resting in his palm.
Stupid phone.
She assumed he would sigh. She assumed he would stand up, close the box, put it away, and go wash the dishes. She believed her rejection was merely a pause button, a delay in a
I
game
love
she
you more
entirely
than words
controlled.
can say.
Ryan
Will you
felt a
marry me?
strange,
Oh my
cold
God,
numbness
yes.
wash over
a
him.
million times, yes.
The anger hadn't
Yes?
arrived
Oh,
yet.
thank you.
There was
Thank
only
you.
absolute, devastating clarity. He looked at the face-down phone, then back at her steady, entitled gaze. He slowly stood up. He didn't snap the box shut. He pressed it closed softly, slipping it back into his pocket. His hands weren't shaking. "I love you," Ryan said, his voice eerily calm, the words floating in the space between them.
Every time.
"But I won't beg, and I won't audition for a commitment."
Why
Ava
me?
rolled her eyes, a gesture so dismissive it physically ached. "You're being ridiculous. I just need time." Ryan didn't argue. He turned his back on her, walking toward the bedroom. He pulled his duffel bag from the closet and began tossing shirts into
You're
it.
safe?
He wasn't storming out. He was
That
simply
was your
leaving a
final
space where he was no longer chosen. The first 48 hours felt less like a breakup and more like a tactical retreat. Ryan had taken refuge on the lumpy, olive-green sofa in his co-worker Matt's apartment in Capitol Hill. The constant drizzle of Seattle rain tapped against the single pane of glass, a white noise that did nothing to drown out the relentless vibration of his phone on the coffee table. It buzzed again. The screen lit up the dimly lit living room, casting a harsh blue glow over the dust motes in the air. The name displayed was one he had once associated with warmth, Eleanor, Ava's mom. He let it ring out.
What is it, Ryan?
A minute later, the voicemail icon appeared. Ryan picked up the device, the glass cold against his palm. He pressed the phone to his ear, staring blankly at the shadows stretching across Matt's ceiling. "Ryan, I don't know what on earth is going through your head." Eleanor's voice crackled through the tiny speaker, tight with indignation and breathless with anger. "Ava is devastated. You humiliate her by walking out just because she needs a little more time to feel secure. That is not love, Ryan. That is control. You need to come back here and act like an adult." He deleted the message before the automated prompt could even finish. It wasn't the first.
You think you know what is coming.
Yesterday morning, it had been Ava's father,
But you have
delivering
no
a
idea
stern,
the
baritone
darkness
lecture
that
about
waits for
patience,
you.
insisting that real men didn't abandon the
I
women
have
they
made my
loved
choice,
when things got
And I
uncomfortable.
will not be swayed.
Then came the texts from mutual
This ends
friends,
tonight.
carefully worded inquiries that
I am
painted
done
Ava as a
waiting.
confused, heartbroken victim, and Ryan as an impatient tyrant who threw away 3 years over a bruised ego. She told them I couldn't handle waiting, Ryan realized, the thought bitter on his tongue. She conveniently left out the part where she told me to marry someone else. He sat up, the thin blanket falling from his shoulders. The apartment was completely silent. Matt was working a late shift at the hospital. Ryan walked into the small kitchenette, turning on the tap and watching the water spiral down the drain before filling a glass he didn't really want. As he leaned against the counter, the quiet of the room allowed the memories of the last few months to surface, no longer clouded by his blind trust. He thought about the timeline Ava was supposedly so terrified of. It wasn't just the proposal she had rejected. She had been pulling away in microfractions for half a year. He remembered the sudden influx of marketing crises that kept her at the office until 9 at night. The way she had started taking her phone into the bathroom whenever she showered, the screen always locked and face down. The faint, unfamiliar scent of a musky, expensive cologne that he had once dismissed as the smell of a crowded elevator, lingering on her wool coat. At the time, Ryan had convinced himself it was just the stress of her impending promotion. He had cooked dinner, kept their apartment clean, and tried to be the steady, supportive partner she needed. Now, bathed in the harsh fluorescent light of the stove hood, those fragments began to assemble into a terrifying picture. The scoff when he was on one knee, the frantic way she had slammed her phone onto the marble counter right before he proposed. She hadn't been overwhelmed by the thought of forever. She had been irritated that his proposal was interrupting something else. The phone on the counter buzzed one more time. An email notification this time. Subject.
You need to give me more time.
Can we talk like adults?
He's not
Quakrobova?
here anymore. I don't know where he
Preview.
went.
You didn't have
promise
to
I'll
let
find
things
it.
get so ugly
Just
with my
please
family.
Don't tell anyone.
I just wish you hadn't
You
reacted
always
so
do this.
extremely.
I can't believe you.
Ryan
You ruined
stared at the glowing
everything.
text. Reacted so extremely.
Just call me back.
The sheer
Ryan.
audacity
Don't
of her
ignore
rewrite
this.
settled heavily in his chest.
You're lying.
He locked the screen,
I know
leaving the
you're
apartment in
lying.
darkness again.
No, I'm not. You're missing.
The dull ache of heartbreak was slowly being
Just tell me
replaced
the
by a sharp,
truth.
cold suspicion. And he knew he
told
had to
me
go
you would
back to their
leave him.
apartment one last time to find out exactly what she was hiding.
I know.
The key turned in the
I'm
lock
sorry.
with a heavy, metallic thud that resonated in Ryan's chest. He had checked Ava's shared calendar, a digital habit they hadn't yet severed, and knew she was in a quarterly strategy session until 4. The apartment was eerily still, the air stagnant and smelling of the wilting lilies he had bought her a week ago. He moved with a ghostly efficiency, avoiding the living room where the memory of his knee hitting the floor still felt like a fresh bruise. He went straight for the bedroom, pulling his large suitcase from the top shelf of the closet. He began clearing his side of the dresser, the sound of zippers and folding fabric the only thing breaking the silence. It was when he reached for his spare passport in the bedside drawer, the one Ava insisted they keep organized in her jewelry box for
I
safekeeping,
can't believe this is
that the symmetry of his life began to tilt. The box was a heavy, lacquered mahogany piece he had gifted her on their 2nd anniversary. He lifted the lid, expecting to see his blue passport tucked under her velvet trays. Instead, the tray was slightly askew. Tucked beneath a string of pearls was a crumpled slip of thermal paper and a small, charcoal gray smartphone he had never seen before. Ryan's breath hitched. He picked up the receipt first. The Fairmont Olympic Hotel, and the date was last Tuesday, the night Ava claimed she was pulling an all-nighter for the Henderson account. It wasn't just a room charge. It was a late-night service for 2, including a bottle of vintage Pinot Noir. The world seemed to shrink until it was just the size of that slip of paper. He felt a sickening heat rise from his neck. Slowly, almost as if he were disarming a bomb, he picked up the second phone. It wasn't locked. There was only one contact in the messaging app, saved simply as
It
J.
wasn't them.
The thread was long.
It was
It was
you
a
the
digital
whole
map
time.
of a betrayal that spanned months. J. Room 412. The wine is already breathing. Hurry. Alva. I'm leaving now. Ryan thinks I'm at the office. He's so sweet. It almost makes me feel guilty.
I needed
Almost.
to finish it tonight,
Jay,
no matter what.
don't think about him. Think about the promotion. Think about us. Ryan sat on the edge of the bed, the very bed they had shared for 1,000 nights, and felt a hollow, echoing laughter build in his throat. It wasn't about readiness. It wasn't about a 24-year-old needing space to grow. It was a cold, calculated transaction. Julian, her boss, a man Ryan had shaken hands with at the company Christmas
I
party,
know it's tough.
wasn't just her
but you're
lover.
gonna get through
He was her
this.
career architect. He realized now
You've
why she had
always been
scoffed at the
stronger than
ring.
you think.
The ring represented a
You
ceiling.
just rest.
It represented a life of shared
I've got
rent
dinner
and
handled.
middle-class stability, while Julian represented the high-rise offices
Thanks,
and the
Ryan.
power she actually craved. She hadn't been afraid of commitment. She had been afraid of committing to the wrong
No.
rung on the social ladder.
It can't
He looked
be.
at the burner phone, then
You
at the
knew
half-packed
this, didn't
suitcase.
you?
Ava, wait,
The anger
don't.
that had been absent for days
No, I
finally
can't
arrived,
Look at this anymore.
but it wasn't hot or loud. It was a freezing, crystalline rage. He thought of Eleanor's voicemail,
I cannot
accusing him of
believe
being
this is
controlling.
happening again.
He thought of Ava's father calling him immature. They were all part of her theater. She had used her family as a frontline defense, painting him as a villain to ensure that if he ever found out, no one would believe him. She had been playing a high-stakes game of reputation management, and he had been the unsuspecting casualty. Ryan didn't put the phone back. He didn't hide the receipt. He took a photo of both with his own phone, a digital insurance policy, and then placed the originals back exactly as he had found them, except for one detail. He turned the Fairmont receipt face up, right on top of her pearls. He zipped his suitcase shut.
No, I can't look
He no
away.
longer felt like he was running
Oh my
away.
God.
Then as he walked
What have
out of
you
the
done?
apartment, leaving his key on the kitchen island where the ring box had once sat, the heavy Seattle gray outside looked clearer than it had in years. The adult conversation Ava wanted was coming, but it wouldn't be on her
trusted
terms.
you.
The glass doors of the architectural firm
I
offered a
know.
brief sanctuary of conditioned air and the smell of
I'll
blueprint
fix
toner.
this.
But Ryan knew he couldn't stay inside forever. Through the large street-level windows, he saw her. Ava was leaning against a black lamppost, her trench coat cinched tight, her sunglasses masking her eyes despite the overcast Seattle sky. She looked like a woman who had rehearsed her entrance, a calculated image of a grieving but resilient ex-lover. When he stepped onto the sidewalk, she straightened immediately. She didn't lead with a greeting. "You're ignoring my mother's calls, Ryan," she said, her voice projecting just enough to catch the attention of a few passing colleagues. "Do you have any idea how much stress you're putting on my family? All because you had a tantrum over a no." Ryan didn't stop walking. He headed toward the small, crowded cafe on the corner, knowing that a public space was the only thing that might keep her from a full-blown
Time to
performance. She trailed behind him, her heels clicking sharply on the wet pavement. "We are talking. Now," she demanded, catching up to him as they reached a small table in the back of the cafe. They sat down. The air was thick with the steam of espresso machines and the low hum of morning chatter. Ava leaned in, her eyes sharp and predatory. "You need to call my parents and apologize. Tell them you were overwhelmed and you overreacted. If you do that, I'll tell them we're trying to work through it. I'll give you a chance to earn your way back." Ryan looked at her, truly looked at her, and felt a profound sense of pity. She was still playing the game, still moving the pieces as if he hadn't seen the board. "Earn my way back?" Ryan asked quietly. "To what, Ava? To a life where I pay half the rent while you're at the Fairmont Olympic?" The change in her face was instantaneous. It wasn't a slow realization. It was a total collapse of her features. The righteous indignation vanished, replaced by a pale, hollowed-out terror. Her mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. "I went back for my passport," Ryan continued, his voice barely a whisper, yet it cut through the cafe noise like a blade. "I didn't expect to find Julian's phone in your jewelry box, or the receipt for room 412. Ava's hand flew to the collar of her coat, a defensive, instinctive gesture. "Ryan, it's not what it looks like.
God.
Julian is a mentor."
Okay.
That night was about the promotion.
Don't touch
It was...
anything else.
"Stop,"
Just the phone.
he interrupted. "Don't
Just the
lie.
phone.
Not now. I read the texts, Ava. He's so sweet. It almost makes me feel guilty." Was that before or after the Pinot Noir? The silence between them became an island. Ava looked around frantically, checking to see if anyone was listening. The power dynamic had shifted so violently that she seemed physically smaller. The woman who had told him to marry someone else was gone, replaced by a panicked girl whose carefully constructed house of cards was caught in a gale.
Good. Be careful. I'll be waiting.
"Please," she hissed, her voice trembling. "If this gets out, my job, the promotion, my parents think I'm perfect, Ryan. You can't do this." "I'm not doing anything," Ryan said, leaning back. "You did this. You rejected a life with me because you were already building one with him. You just wanted me to keep the lights on at home while you climbed the ladder in his bed. It was a mistake, she pleaded, reaching across the table to grab his hand. Ryan pulled back as if her skin were electrified. I love you.
No turning back.
I told you that. Julian is just... It's just business, I swear. Business, Ryan repeated, a bitter smile touching his lips. Then I suppose my leaving is just a business loss. Go back to Julian, Ava. I'm sure he'll be thrilled to know I'm out of the way. He stood up, leaving a $10 bill on the table for the coffee they hadn't ordered. Ava sat frozen. The hotel receipt she didn't know he had photographed, now a phantom presence between them. She had come to demand an apology. She was leaving with the knowledge that her secret had a witness. Don't call me again, Ryan said. And tell your mother that if she leaves one more voicemail, I won't be as quiet as I've been. He walked out of the cafe, the cool rain feeling like a baptism. Behind him, through the glass, he saw Ava bury her face in her hands. The narrative was no longer hers to control, and for the first time in 3 years, Ryan breathed air that didn't taste like a lie. The digital world was the first to turn cold. Within 48 hours of the cafe confrontation, Ryan noticed the subtle, jagged edges of social excommunication. It started with the unfollows, soft, silent subtractions from his life. Then came the group chats that went suddenly quiet when he typed a message, and the weekend hiking trips he was no longer invited to. Ava had not spent her time crying in private. Instead, she had mobilized.
No.
Ryan sat in his small, temporary office cubicle, staring at a screenshot Matt had sent him. It was a post from a mutual friend's private story, captioned with a vague but biting quote about the danger of hidden tempers and believing someone isn't who they say they are. Below it, a longtime college friend had commented, I can't believe he was that controlling. Poor Ava is a wreck. She had flipped the script with surgical precision. She wasn't an adulteress. She was a survivor. In her version of the story, Ryan hadn't walked away because of her infidelity. He had walked away because he was a paranoid, emotionally volatile man who had been tracking her and monitoring her work life until she couldn't breathe. The hotel receipt? In her narrative, that was a fabrication, a desperate lie created by a jilted man to justify his abandonment.
This is it.
She's telling everyone you've been stalking her location for months, Matt said, leaning against the cubicle wall with a look of profound discomfort. She told Sarah that you showed up at her office and made a scene, and that you've been sending her threatening emails. Ryan, people are actually starting to believe it. Ryan felt a cold, hollow sensation in his chest. He looked at the folder on his desktop labeled Evidence. Inside were the photos of the burner phone, the timestamps of the messages, and the Fairmont receipt. One click. One send-all to their circle of friends would incinerate her lies. It would show them the woman they were comforting was the same woman who had mocked his love while drinking vintage wine in a hotel room.
I understand
His finger hovered over the mouse. The urge to retaliate was a physical thrum in his blood. He wanted to see the look on her parents' faces when they realized their perfect daughter was a corporate mistress. He wanted to hear the silence of the friends who were currently dragging his name through the mud.
You didn't give me a choice.
But then, he looked at his own reflection in the darkened computer screen.
Everyone saw what happened.
He looked tired.
Look at me.
He looked like a man who had been carrying the weight of a dying relationship for too long. If he released the photos, he would win the battle of public opinion, but he would be tied to Ava forever. He would become the bitter ex who leaked private photos. He would be playing in the same mud she was currently drowning in. He closed the folder. I'm not doing it, Matt, Ryan said quietly. Are you serious? She's destroying your reputation, man. You won't be able to walk into a bar in this city without someone looking at you like you're a monster. Let them look,
They know
Ryan
we're
replied,
here.
his voice hardening.
We don't have much time.
The truth has a way of coming
I
out,
understand.
and I'm not going to be the one to drag it out.
What's the next
If they choose
move?
to believe her without asking for my side,
I needed to tell
then they
you
weren't
the
my
truth,
friends to
Ava.
begin with. The isolation
I
was
know.
brutal. That night,
I
Ryan
heard what
walked through the
happened.
Seattle streets, feeling like
you
a
think
ghost.
You can just walk away from
He
this?
saw a group of their old friends through the
Think
window of a
again.
tavern in Belltown,
Because you and I,
the same place they used to
not
go for
done
trivia
yet.
nights.
not even close.
He saw them laughing, leaning in as Sarah
I
whispered something,
understand you might
stuck
not see the
likely
value
another
in this
fact
now,
about
but trust
Ryan's
me,
supposed
it's
instability.
For your own good.
He didn't go in.
Think of it as a gift.
He kept walking until the neon
I
lights
thought-
faded, and the only sound was his own
I
footsteps
don't
on
know
the
what
wet
to say.
pavement. He was losing his friends, his social
Then don't say
standing,
anything.
and his history. But as he reached his small,
I think
empty
we both
apartment,
know how this has to
he
end.
realized he was finally gaining something he hadn't
Oh,
had in
do we?
years. A life that wasn't a performance.
I
The silence
saw
was
her.
lonely, but it was
I
honest.
saw everything.
And as the rain began to fall again, Ryan
There's no
realized
one
that
left.
Ava's campaign of lies was only a temporary shield. A house built on a foundation of Julian's promises and
No.
manufactured victimhood couldn't stand forever.
It can't
He would
be.
wait. Not for her, but for the inevitable moment when her glass castle began to crack. The air in the upscale lounge was thick with the scent of leather and expensive bourbon. Mia, a world away from the
You need
homey,
to understand
rain-scented
this is the only
apartment
way
Ava
out.
had shared with Ryan. Across the
follow
small,
my lead,
candlelit table,
exactly,
Julian
or
sat with his
we'll pay
tailored
the
suit
price.
jacket unbuttoned, his
The
wedding
data
ring glinting under the
unequivocally
dim
proves
amber
that the
lights
current
whenever he
approach
reached
is
for his glass.
unsustainable,
To Ava,
resulting in a
this
net
was the
loss
future
of
she had
over
suffered for.
30% annually.
Ryan is officially out of the picture, Ava said,
No!
her voice dropping to a
Stop!
conspiratorial whisper.
Don't come any closer!
She tried to catch Julian's eye, searching for the triumphant spark she
I
expected.
wasn't there, I swear.
The narrative is set. My family thinks he's the problem, and our friends have moved
He told
on.
me it was okay.
There's nothing stopping us now, Julian. Julian took a
Stop
slow,
right
deliberate
there.
sip of his drink.
I know you're lying.
He didn't lean in. If anything, he seemed to create more distance, his gaze wandering to the door as if checking for witnesses.
And how does it feel?
Stopping us from what exactly?
Knowing
He asked.
you deserve exactly
His tone was
this.
smooth, professional, and devastatingly neutral. Ava felt a cold prickle of unease. From being together, properly. You said once Ryan was gone, we wouldn't have to hide in hotel rooms.
I don't
You
know
said
what
you
to
were
do.
unhappy, that your marriage was just a formality. Julian let out a short, dry chuckle that didn't reach his
I can't
eyes.
do this.
He set his glass down with a soft clink.
No, this isn't right.
Ava, you're a brilliant
not
marketing
ready.
coordinator. You understand branding. You understand
Please,
optics.
someone help me.
Do you really think I'm going to divorce a woman whose
No,
father sits on the
please.
board of our primary investor?
I'm begging you. Just
Over
let me go. I'll do
this?
anything.
The word "this" landed like a slap.
Please.
Ava's face paled, the carefully applied
I've heard
blush
enough.
suddenly looking like a bruise. This?
There's nothing
We've
more
been
to
together for
discuss.
6 months, Julian. I turned down a marriage proposal for you.
You have to help me.
I destroyed my reputation to protect
I don't know
yours.
what to do anymore.
You told me I was the only one who understood you, and you
Please.
are, Julian replied,
Don't touch me.
his voice dropping into that predatory, soothing register he used in boardrooms.
Ryan,
Please.
But understanding me means
Just stay
understanding
away
that I
from
don't
me.
leave my life for a distraction.
I'm
You were the
impressed,
escape,
I
Ava.
really am.
You were the excitement that made the office bearable. But don't mistake a business trip for a permanent move. He leaned forward then, but there was no warmth in the gesture. It was a threat wrapped in a velvet glove. And let's be very clear. If you start making scenes, or if your narrative about your ex-boyfriend starts to bleed into our professional lives, you'll find that Seattle is a very small town for someone looking for a new job. I can make you a director, or I can make you a ghost. Choose carefully. Ava felt the room tilt. The high-rise dreams, the expensive wine,
Don't
the thrilling
follow me.
secret. It all dissolved into a sharp,
You'll regret
jagged
it.
realization. Ryan had offered her a home, a name, and a heart. Julian was offering her a
what have I
paycheck and an
done?
NDA. She had traded a man
can't
who was
stay
willing
here
to kneel in the
anymore.
dirt for her, for a man who wouldn't even hold her hand in a dimly lit bar. I gave up everything for you, she whispered, her voice trembling. No, Julian corrected, standing up and buttoning his jacket. You gave up everything for the idea of me. There's a difference. I have a gala to attend with my wife. Don't be late for the strategy meeting tomorrow morning. You look tired, Ava. Get some sleep. He left a $100 bill on the table, more than enough for the drinks,
God damn
and
it.
walked out without looking back. Ava sat alone as the
Ryan?
ice melted in her glass,
No.
the amber
Not
liquid
again.
turning watery and pale.
I'm so close.
The greener grass she had chased was nothing more than painted concrete. She looked at her phone, her thumb hovering instinctively over Ryan's contact. She wanted to call him, to hear his steady, honest voice, to find the safety she had so casually discarded. But then she remembered the hotel receipt she had found face up on her pearls.
No, you can't be
She remembered the
serious.
cold, absolute finality in Ryan's eyes at the cafe.
That's a perfect
She had burned her
lie.
bridge to the only person who actually loved her. And as she sat in the shadows of the bar, she realized she was no longer the director of her own story. She was just another line in Julian's ledger, one he was already preparing to write off. The knocking was
evidence you
tentative at
submitted
first,
has been called
a
into
soft intrusion
question.
into the stillness of Ryan's Tuesday
It
night.
appears to be fabricated.
He was sitting at a small wooden desk,
I saw
sketching
him
the
last
skeletal
night.
frame of a new
He was
project,
bad.
his mind finally
Really
clear
bad.
of the cluttered
You did the
noise
right thing,
that had
Matt.
defined
Just
the last
breathe.
month.
But I
When the
didn't
knocking
help him.
persisted, growing
I
louder
saw
and more
him.
frantic, a
He was
cold
in the
knot
hall,
tightened in his stomach.
alone.
He knew that rhythm. He opened the
didn't know
door
what
to
to
find
do.
Ava. She looked nothing like the polished executive who had looked down on him in the cafe. Her hair was damp from the misting rain, clinging to her cheeks in dark, messy strands. Her mascara had smudged, leaving faint charcoal shadows under her eyes, and she was wrapped in an oversized cardigan that looked like it had been pulled from the bottom of a laundry basket. "Ryan," she choked out, her voice thin and ragged. He didn't move. He stood in the threshold, a physical barrier between her and the peace he had built. "It's 11 o'clock, Ava. Please," she whispered. She appeared, her hands trembling as she reached out to touch the doorframe. "Please,
I'll
just
make
let
them
me
pay.
talk to you for 5 minutes. I have nowhere else to
Every
go.
single one.
Everything
won't
is
know
falling
what hit
apart."
you.
Ryan stepped back, not out of invitation, but out of a weary desire to end the scene in the hallway. She stumbled into the apartment, her eyes darting around the sparse room. There were no photos on the walls, no shared trinkets, no lingering scent of her vanilla perfume. The emptiness of the space seemed to hit her like a physical blow. "I made a mistake," she began, the words tumbling out in a frantic, rehearsed rush. "A horrible, disgusting mistake. Julian, he's a monster,
I
Ryan.
can't
He
do
lied
this
to me.
alone,
He
Matt.
used me. I was so
You
caught
have
up
to
in the
tell them
pressure
what
of
you
work,
saw.
and I thought I was
will.
doing what I had to do to get ahead."
I saw it
But it was
happen,
all
man. It
hollow.
right there. Why don't you believe
Ryan
me?
leaned against the
Believe
kitchen
what?
counter,
You're not making
the
any
same counter
sense.
where he
Just
used to
listen
prepare her
me. I
coffee
need
every
your
morning.
help. You have to
He
understand
felt a
this is
strange,
real.
detached sensation, as if he were watching a movie in a language he no longer spoke. "You didn't make a mistake, Ava," he said, his voice terrifyingly calm. "A mistake is forgetting to lock the door. You built a separate life. You looked me in the eye every night for 6 months while you were coming from his bed." "I was confused," she cried, stepping toward him, her hands outstretched in a plea. I was young and scared of the commitment, and he made me feel like I was powerful.
I can't believe
But it was
she
always
actually
you,
said
Ryan.
that.
I stayed
No
with you
way.
because you're the only
I
person who
know.
actually
That's
knows me.
hilarious.
The only one who ever truly
She's
loved me.
something else.
No, Ryan countered, his voice sharpening. You stayed with me because I was the safety net. You liked the comfort of my home and the security of my love while you went out and played a different version of yourself with him. You didn't stay because you loved me. You stayed because you were greedy. Ava began to sob, a deep, shuddering sound that once would have brought Ryan to his knees in an instant. Now, it just felt loud. I'll do anything, she pleaded, falling onto the edge of his small sofa. I'll quit the job. I'll tell my parents the truth. I'll tell everyone that I lied about you. Just don't leave me alone in this. I can't breathe without knowing you're there. Ryan looked at her, the woman he had once intended to grow old with. And for the first time, he didn't see a partner. He saw a stranger using his nostalgia as a weapon. He thought about the hotel receipt. He thought about her scoffing at his ring. He thought about the way she had tried to destroy his reputation just to save her own.
It's real.
The girl
You
I
need to
loved wouldn't
move
have done
now.
those things, Ava, he said
You
softly.
didn't think I'd get it,
And the
did
man
you?
I am now wouldn't have stayed with the woman you've become.
Never doubted
You aren't asking for
a
forgiveness.
second.
You're just looking for someone to help you carry the weight
think
of
you
your own
should go.
choices. And I'm done carrying things for you. Ryan, please,
I'm not
Go
leaving
home,
until
Ava.
we're finished.
he interrupted, walking to the door and holding it open.
I understand
The conversation
completely,
you wanted is over.
and that's
It's been
why
over
you're
since the night you told me to marry
irrelevant
someone else. I'm finally taking your advice. She stood up slowly, her face contorted
I
in a
don't
mask
understand.
of realization.
How could you say that?
There was no more manipulation
Please,
left to
just
try.
tell me what's happening.
She walked past him, and for a fleeting second,
Yes.
took to the scent of her damp clothes brushed against
Very
him,
funny.
a ghost of a life that no longer existed. He closed the door and turned the deadbolt. The
You
click
had
was
one
final.
opportunity to prove
He
yourself.
walked back to his desk,
and you
picked up his
failed.
pencil, and began to draw
Consider
again.
This your final evaluation.
The silence was back,
Get out.
and this time, it was
The
beautiful.
funding is being cut.
The Pacific Northwest spring arrived not with a burst of
We
heat,
lost everything.
but with a softening of the light. Ryan stood on the small balcony of his new studio,
I trusted
watching
you
the morning
completely.
fog
How
lift
could
off
you
the
do
Elliott
this
Bay.
to me?
The apartment was his,
Please,
bought with
just
his
tell
own
me
savings,
why. I
designed
don't
with his own vision,
understand.
and filled with a
I
silence that
understand
no longer felt
completely.
like a void. It felt like a foundation.
And I think we can make
The
this
fallout of
work
Ava's double life had eventually reached the surface,
together.
as secrets of that nature always do.
I've made the decision.
Without Ryan to act as her
It's the
scapegoat,
only logical
Ava's
option.
narrative had begun to leak. To a disgruntled
Sentiment has
co-worker
no
at the
place
marketing
here.
firm had leaked the nature of her
I'm not
mentorship
asking,
with Julian to
I'm
the board.
telling you. Don't test
Julian,
my patience.
true to his word,
I don't think
had
you'll like
protected
the
himself by
consequences.
sacrificing her.
I'm sure you understand.
Ava was quietly let go,
No.
and the married director
This
moved his
can't be
family to Chicago
happening.
to start fresh, leaving the
isn't-
wreckage of his ambition behind in Seattle.
This isn't real.
The truth had rippled through their old social circle like a slow-moving wave.
No.
The unfollows were replaced by
This can't
tentative,
be
apologetic
happening.
texts from friends who realized they had been played. I'm so sorry,
I never
Ryan.
thought I'd lose everything.
We didn't know.
It's gonna be
Ava was so
okay.
convincing, we
No,
feel
it
like idiots.
won't. I did this.
Ryan had read the messages,
I
but he hadn't
ruined it
replied.
all.
He didn't feel the
can't do
surge of
this
triumph he had
anymore.
expected.
Please, Julian.
He didn't
don't
feel the
leave
need
me.
to say, "I told you so."
Goodbye,
He simply
Ava.
felt finished. The version of him that needed their validation had disappeared along with the ring box he had eventually sold to fund his new drafting table. A week ago, he had seen Eleanor, Ava's mother, in a grocery store in
Ryan?
Queen Anne. She had looked older, the fierce, protective
Hello.
fire in her eyes replaced by a deep,
Sorry
hollow
for calling
shame.
So late.
She had tried to catch his eye,
I'm sorry.
her lips parting as if to offer a long overdue apology.
I didn't mean it.
Ryan had simply given her a polite, distant nod and kept
I'm
walking.
so alone.
He didn't need her remorse to justify his departure. He went back inside and sat at his desk, opening a fresh sketchbook. His career was thriving. The clarity he found in his personal life had bled into his architecture, leading to designs that were bold, honest, and stripped of unnecessary ornament. His phone vibrated. It was a notification from a professional networking site.
Ryan, please
Ava
don't
has
leave.
viewed your profile.
There's nothing more to say.
He stared at the name for a moment.
I
He thought
need to
about that
see
rainy
you.
Sunday evening, the
Please.
smell of Thai food, and the whispered cruelty of marry someone else. He
Why did you
remembered the
come here?
agonizing nights on Matt's couch and the stinging
Where
betrayal
am
in the
I?
Fairmont receipt.
What is this
Then,
place?
he did something he couldn't have done 6 months ago.
I don't know
He
this
closed the tab
room.
without a second thought.
I never felt
He didn't
a
check her
thing.
profile to see where she was working.
It's just a
He didn't look
job.
at her Instagram to see if she was happy or miserable.
Now,
He didn't care.
proceed as planned.
Ava was no longer the
I'm
villain of his
begging
story.
you.
She was simply a
Just tell
character
me what
in a
you
book he had
need.
finished reading. The doorbell rang.
There's nothing more to
It was
say.
Matt and Sarah, the few who had stayed
You think you can
and the
lie
few
to
who
me?
had truly earned back his
I
trust.
see right through it.
They were going for a hike in the Cascades,
This is the
a
truth.
ritual of their
and
new,
there's no
honest
changing
life.
it.
Ready to go?
Please.
Matt asked, leaning against the doorframe.
I'm so sorry.
He looked around the bright, minimalist
Please,
space.
just don't go. I
Place
need
looks good,
you.
Ryan. Really good.
Please.
Yeah, Ryan
You
said,
need to
grabbing
go.
his jacket and his
No,
keys.
Ryan, please.
He took one last look at the studio, at the sketches of buildings
done.
that would soon
Don't
become
come back.
reality, and at the empty space where a ghost used to live.
Goodbye.
I'm ready?
Bye. Goodbye.
As he stepped out and locked the door, he didn't look back. He had spent 3 years waiting for someone to choose him,
The morning
only to
brings a
realize that
new
the only
beginning.
choice that mattered was the one he made for himself. He wasn't the guy
Fresh
who got
start
rejected.
for all.
He was the guy who chose his own worth.
Eleanor.
And as he walked down to the street, the Seattle sun finally
Ryan?
broke through the clouds, tonight reflecting off the glass towers of a city that was finally, truly his.